Hello. This video is about how I made The Empire Strikes Door. Now, if you haven't seen The Empire Strikes Door, then you may come out of this as dazed and confused as a stormtrooper that's just hit his head on a door. And with that, not only comes concussion, but also spoilers as well. So I'm going to talk about the behind-the-scenes goings-on of this thing that we ended up with. I'm going to talk about the good stuff, the bad stuff, the aftermath as well, because the people involved, i.e. the suspects, did respond. Certainly one of them responded in a fairly negative way. So I'm going to talk about that, the aftermath. I like that, it's very dramatic. And also stick around to the very end of the video, because I'm going to show a few clips that never made it in to the final cut, and I'm going to answer some of your questions as well, which were left in the YouTube community tab thing. Alright then, first things first, why the devil did I make it? That is probably the $1,000,000 question, but I guess it mostly came from my natural thirst for knowledge, for answers, for the truth. And also a lot of you who will be watching this will have been with me since day one. This channel began, if you don't mind, it's pretty bright here, we've got sunshine in the UK, baby. You might remember that this channel began with me tracking down, it's something I still do, tracking down the kind of more niche characters, if you like, from the original Star Wars film before The Force Awakens was released. Track them down, do an interview, and also make a little kind of audition tape with them to try and show J.J. Abrams and Disney in general what they're missing out on, maybe getting back in a future Star Wars film. We had Gonk Droids, Low Grady Ewok, the guy who played Jabba the Hutt's tail, of course, Ahmed, who played Jar Jar, Dave Prowse, the body, the physicality of Darth Vader, Boba Fett, loads, Greedo. And I say Greedo, when you're looking for the person who played Greedo, a simple web search will bring it up. It's clear, and it's clear also that they're going to be appearing at every Comic-Con around the world every weekend for the rest of their lives. They're approachable in that way. But when I typed in the stormtrooper who bumped his head, I got two people coming back staring at me via Google Images, and that obviously therefore made it a bit trickier. As you see in the film, one of them refused to talk to me, Michael Leader, and the second one, Laurie, did talk to me. Now, after I spoke to Laurie, a third stormtrooper came out of the, as I say in the documentary, the Death Star woodwork, and that was Martin Reed. His daughter heard me, or he heard me on a radio show where I was talking about this in the UK, and said, hang on, that's me. So there was the thing with the stormtrooper who bumped his head. It was not black and white like stormtrooper armor. It kind of organically turned into a full-on, I guess, investigation, a documentary essentially, and it was really only supposed to be a 5 to 10 minute video interview with a little audition tape at the end as part of that original these are the actors you're looking for. But again, organically turned into something much more, I like to say bigger, but probably more bloated is more relevant. So that's how it came to be, and that's what the Empire Strikes Door was. If you are still watching this having not seen the Empire Strikes Door, it was me investigating who was the true stormtrooper who bumped his head in that scene in the original Star Wars. By the way, if you're still here, could you go to the original Empire Strikes Door video? I'll put a link to it in the description, and could you, if you've got the time, could you just leave it playing in the background, because apparently retention is really important. So watching something as long as possible, and also if you hadn't already, just give it a like, and also even if you have already, just write another comment and maybe we can help trigger that algorithm for it. It's worth a try. So the more it went on, it ended up being more expensive on my time and also on my minimal savings from living in very overpriced London for 12 years. So I wanted to make it as good as possible, and I did an IndieGoGo campaign. So thank you again to everybody who contributed to the 2-part campaign on IndieGoGo. In the end, got a bit over £2,000, and what was it in US dollars? Either way, I think post-Brexit it's kind of like the same thing. And the reasons, I guess, go without saying as to why I wanted to get some financial support, because I wanted to make it as good as possible without having to beg, borrow, steal from people in terms of their time and their equipment, and also really thinking mostly about post-production, because I struggle with editing. When people, ask me where this thing is I promised many moons ago, it's usually because I'm really struggling with the edit, and that's what slows me down. And the Empire Strikes Door, in a way, is overall slowed this channel down because it was taking up all of my time, which is why I wasn't posting elsewhere. And that's because I ended up doing most of the editing myself, because what we made on IndieGoGo was quite far, I think it's fair to say, from the budget I calculated that I would need to get the right people involved and to pay them something. So I did most of the editing on my own. Charlie, who helped a lot with the filming along the way, he did some of the graphics and the titles, for example, and also my friend Fabio, who's very good at this kind of thing. He did some of the more complicated editing, kind of After Effects stuff as well for me. But generally I was doing that edit all on my own, and also obviously trying to pay my extortionate rent in London at the same time. But on that subject, I've got a question from Chad Campbell on the IndieGoGo. He left this question on the community tab. Probably should have had this ready. Do one of those cuts. He asked, despite trying twice, this project never met its estimated budget. I know. And he asked, therefore, did they affect the end product or discourage you from continuing? Did they affect the end product? Maybe. I mean, the end product was never what I wanted it to be anyway, because I don't think that's ever achievable in this kind of thing. So did it affect it? Possibly, but I think we still ended up with the best possible result we could have ended up with in the circumstances we were in. Obviously, you know, more budget, more freedom to concentrate on what I needed to concentrate could have helped other elements, but it's kind of hard to answer. But you also asked, did it discourage me from continuing? No, because I was already so far into it. If it was an idea and failed twice, then yeah, I think that would have been it. I don't think I would have made it, but I don't know for sure. But as I'd already started making it, and it was really more about financing the final shoots and also the post-production, as I mentioned, I was fired up enough to think, you know, I'm going to do this regardless. Because also I really wanted it to be a springboard for the channel. You know, I really wanted it to be something that would grow the channel overall, and it didn't. To be honest, it got some decent press coverage, and the people who have seen it, it mostly got good feedback, but it just never got enough new eyes onto it, really. People might have read about it and thought that sounds fun, but I ain't gonna invest 40 minutes, and that's fair enough. So no, I was, I guess, discouraged naturally, because failure has that effect on you. But no, I was always going to carry on in the situation that I was in. Thank you, Chad. There's more from Chad to come. But IndieGoGo and the contributions that were there did really help, and I've listed some of the things that they definitely helped with. Some travel costs for sure. And by the way, not travel costs when you see me outside the Taj Mahal or the Sydney Opera House. Back then, I was very lucky to have a freelance job that required being paid to travel quite a lot. So when I say travel costs, I mean obviously getting to the polygraph office and getting the two suspects there as well, Martin and Laurie, etc. I had to pay one of my camera ops one day, Mark, because the people who were helping me for free weren't available. Artwork as well by Victor Laub, and I hope I say your surname correctly, Victor Laub. He's done some amazing artwork, which you must have seen if you've seen The Empire Strikes Door, because it's on the thumbnail, and I'm going to post some pictures up now of his process throughout that, and I'm also going to put Victor's Instagram account in the video description if you want to go and see some of his other work. And he did it really kind of like at a far lower rate than he normally would, so thank you, Victor, once again for that. And also psychologically as well, it contributed because people had given me some of their hard-earned money to go make this thing, to help make this thing, so I felt like I had a duty, an extra duty on top of the duty of finishing this thing I'd already started. So psychologically I think it helped. Getting people involved, nobody you saw on screen got paid a penny. Everybody did it because they were invested in it. So the stormtroopers were invested emotionally, and also all of the jury members that you see did it because they thought it was fun. They wanted to be involved. So there was Ahmed Best, Greg Grunberg, Chris Jericho, also Chris Jericho's Fozzy bandmates, Rich Ward and Kevin Smith. They were kind of like the video jurors. They're the ones that you heard from in the film. And I ended up with a lot more than that. I think maybe sort of 15 more in the end. Ken Napzok, Amy Yamato, Star Wars Explained, Alex there from Star Wars Explained. And that was really because the video jurors' results, as you'll see in the film, didn't really give me a conclusive answer, and I therefore wanted more members of the jury, to bring in people I really enjoy and respect as well in terms of their own content, but also to get a bit more of a conclusive answer from the voting, which we did get in the end. And I am going to make a video which I'll be releasing very soon in the next few days, where I'm going to go into the jury members' comments that you didn't get to hear from in the film as well. So talk more about the jury members, but in terms of getting them involved, I don't think anybody said no, actually. In fact, no, tell a lie, because if you look at Victor's artwork, the process, you'll probably spot some faces. You may not recognize the faces, but you'll spot some faces that did initially say they were in and then pulled out. But I won't go any further into that here. So I think that answers Chad's first question, which was about how I contacted the judges. Bit of a combination, obviously, just reaching out to them, cold calling if you like, but some I did know, some I'd built relationships with previously, so obviously it was therefore a bit easier. And also Jamie Armstrong Hitchings asked who was the hardest to get on board. Nobody was hard in terms of everybody who ended up in it, but then actually getting Kevin Smith to record was probably the hardest part of making the documentary, just because he's Kevin Smith, he's got so many different things going on, and in the nicest possible way. I think he's mentally, all over the place as well because of all those things going on, and he's just one of those creative people that are always on the go. And yeah, so it took a little while to pin him down, and he's also such a nice guy as well, so I don't say this with any kind of negativity. My favourite bits, I'm going with bits here, because there were a few things when I was sort of left to pinch myself, because I was doing some weird stuff. Getting on a milk float. You never see milk floats around anyway these days, but managed to find one and a company who are happy to help.
Today we're in Walthamstow, East London, for The Empire Strikes Door, filming a first. A first for The Empire Strikes Door, a first for Jamie Stangroom. I think that's a first, talking in the third person as well, because today we are filming with a more elegant mode of breakfast delivery from a more civilized age.
So the second thing would have been as well, wearing a stormtrooper outfit. Yeah, getting to go to that factory, or workshop more like, and seeing how they were made, and also getting to wear one myself and just do silly things in it was one of those things that may never happen again. And I'm not sure I want it to happen again, because it was really hot, even on a freezing cold day as well in the winter, but also it was really uncomfortable too, because you've got all these bits digging into you. So that's where I sympathise with the actors, because not only did they have the vision issues, but also you're getting jabbed when you're moving around. So yeah, things like that really were these sort of moments, I suppose, from a production side of it that I think were the best. Favourite worst bit was definitely giving Laurie the result that he failed the polygraph test. I bonded with Laurie. I make fun of him in the documentary a bit, and I would do that in person with him too. He's a character, and he did annoy me in ways, but in a kind of endearing way. That was really the record scratch moment where kind of I'm tongue-in-cheek, I'm being very sort of deadpan with them, but I'm obviously stirring a bit, especially in the hotel before we go to the polygraph place. When I got Martin and Laurie, booked a hotel room, like a Premier Inn, which is a kind of UK motel chain, I guess. And I got them on the bed together, and I was obviously stirring a fair bit, and I'm doing it all very deadpan, but of course I'm doing it from, hopefully you see, a good place and with humour. And really giving him the result was that kind of record scratch moment. And the hardest bit was, I had to shorten that, was really telling him, no, you did fail, because he thought I was joking. I mean, he was in shock, but then he was like, hang on, you're joking, because that's the relationship we've had. So it was really difficult. And I remember looking over at Charlie, who was filming, and he was literally wincing. He was struggling to keep, filming it. He didn't stop, because he's a true professional, But it was really difficult, really tough, and obviously, you know, I had to keep communicating with Laurie after that as well, because I was worried about him. To be honest, it really hit him hard. The polygraph day in general was interesting. We had the hotel first. It was in somewhere in Kent, in England. Lie Detectors UK, who I have to say were very professional. Obviously a lot you didn't see. They did like a pep talk with us before, went through all like the health and safety. It was an odd day, but they were really professional, and it was an interesting experience, I guess, overall. And again, probably something I'll never do, hopefully won't have to do. By the way, Martin did his test first. We had to do them separately because of space. So Martin did his first, and then he actually went home because he wasn't feeling very well. Laurie went in second. And that's why I don't have them both together for the results. In an ideal world, I would have had them sat next to each other for the results ceremony, if you like. So when I say result, I don't mean the polygraph result, because even though Laurie failed, Martin passed. That, for me, didn't rule Laurie out entirely, because I'm not 100% sold on polygraph tests. For me, it wasn't clear, because I hadn't seen really enough from Martin to convince me outside of the polygraph test. He was very confident, of course, in his claim, and was also a lot more chilled about it than Laurie. He was a bit more like, well, it was me. If you don't believe me, fine. You know, I'll get on with my life. I'll go and sell some fish fingers somewhere. But Laurie, obviously, a lot more kind of adamant and, in a nice way, clingy about it. So when I say the result, I mean the jury's result, which I agreed with in the end, and it was Martin that we chose. And that came really from talking to Gary Kurtz, where he mentioned the takes and also the second ADs as well, particularly. So there was Tony Way and there was also Terry Madden, and Terry Madden mentioned some laughter after the bump. It was noticed by the crew, and that's also what Martin said. So his story matched more with what Gary Kurtz told me and what Terry Madden told me. But there was still the niggling doubt that Martin, there was no evidence that he was actually in the film. I hadn't seen any photos like I had with Laurie behind the scenes in the outfit with his helmet off. And it was Anthony Daniels that really kind of, I suppose, put the final nail in Laurie's coffin for me, because he confirmed that Martin Reed did work on the film and was a stormtrooper. They were friends from drama school. So when Gary Kurtz started to talk and things he was saying started matching what Martin's story was about, really from then on I knew, okay, we're getting somewhere now, regardless of the polygraph results. But I didn't want to sort of signpost any of that in the voiceover. I wanted people watching it to be able to sort of make their own mind up as they went along, rather than me, like I said, really signposting it in a voiceover or what have you. So all of that in terms of like the piecing together, I left till the very end, because I wanted people at home to sort of play along rather than be spoon-fed. The aftermath from a personal point of view, I was exhausted from getting it out there, from the editing, which really I probably made harder than it needed to be, because I was just so obsessing over getting everything as good as it could be, to the point where I couldn't promote it as much as I wanted to. So I'm probably partly to blame for it not having the impact I really wanted from 3 years of work. So yeah, it had a bit of a personal effect on me in terms of the aftermath, but Martin barely responded when I told him that he'd won. He was the chosen one. He was just a bit more shrugged it off, really. Busy selling fish fingers somewhere. Laurie, on the other hand, naturally, as you would expect, was very disappointed and did watch the documentary and wasn't very happy with me. Initially, we talked it through, and he was more calm then. Still not happy with the results, still doesn't believe the result. He still doesn't believe the polygraph result was fair. Maybe that's the case. I've never ruled that out, hence me not really pinning everything on that result. And he has talked about doing some sort of reaction himself. And for him, the case certainly isn't over. And I have said to him, if he can come up with some evidence that proves it was him, I will absolutely reopen the case, if you like, or make another video at least and interview him, talk to him again about that. So I think that answers another question from Chad Campbell. And also R3LIC77 did ask as well about the reaction of the suspects and whether they're still out there, you know, claiming it was them. So I think you mean Laurie, is he still out there claiming it was him at conventions, you know, signing the the screenshot. As Kevin Smith says, and as I don't think I said enough in the documentary, I don't think Laurie's lying. I sided with Martin in the end based on the evidence I had, but I still don't think Laurie is willfully lying. I think he believes it was him, and I think he did bump his head, but was it in that scene in that moment? That's the question that he hasn't been able to answer, or I haven't been able to answer on his behalf. So yeah, I'm sure he's doing conventions still. I haven't been there to see whether he is signing that, you know, that image of the stormtrooper bumping his head, but he's definitely doing conventions still, mostly in the UK and a few in Europe. So yeah, I guess he still is, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, you know, because to be fair to Laurie, he's always said he can't prove it. He has always said that, and he does say that in the documentary. Regrets and what I learnt. Regrets, I guess, is a harder one to sort of talk about because I have accepted that this would never have been, the end result would never have been what I had in my mind going along, partly because of budget, but partly because that probably is never achievable. That's something you learn when you create content. You know, you have a different image for something, and if it ends up being exactly what you envisioned, if you like, wow, that's probably quite amazing, and then you might find it wasn't what you wanted anyway, actually, and what you ended up with was actually something you're happier with. I don't know if that was the case with The Empire Strikes Door, so I guess I regret not being able to push it more, but maybe, you know, this is evergreen, maybe it will still happen. If this wasn't something that was so organic, then I would have wanted cameras with me all the time. So for example, when I called Michael Leader and he refused to talk to me, as you've probably noticed, that was like a reconstruction, if you like, of me on the phone with my best acting chops on, getting hung up on. The face of disappointment, which is the face I'm used to pulling. So next time, if I'm doing something that might spiral out of control, like The Empire Strikes Door, then I'll always have a camera on me. I have learnt for sure, you know, part of me getting so ill and the exhaustion, therefore not being able to do my best performance in terms of writing and being on camera and promoting it, came down to the fact I was editing it and it was killing me. I was doing sort of 19, 20, 21 hour days for a good, you know, couple of weeks on end, no exaggeration. Towards the final release date that I set, which was not the first release date that I set. So really, yeah, how important it is to have a proper crew behind you, really, for your own health. Finally, a big thank you to everyone involved. So on the cameras, there was Charlie, who filmed so much, Vince, who also wrote it with me. There was Mark, who did actually get paid, the only person who got paid, but he had to drop some work to also travel quite far from Bristol to London, so thank you still, even though he got paid. Justin, John, Fabio, Luigi, so many, and thank you again to everybody who contributed on IndieGoGo. Also thank you to me for filming too, because I did quite a lot of the camera work, the not so good camera work that you see. But yeah, big thank you to everybody in IndieGoGo. I know I've mentioned a few times that I didn't hit the target, but still it was huge what you did contribute, because it gave me a reason to keep doing it. You know, you believed in me, and that really motivated me to keep going. So thank you to everybody who watched it as well, everybody who engaged with it. But I'm going to leave you now with some unseen clips, bit of fun. Thank you for watching. To help me come to a conclusion, I decided to put together a jury made up of my peers, or at least people who realised it was easier to just say yes and stop me bugging them. Although not everybody understood what being in a jury meant.
Judge Jericho.
Right now,
Bad hair, guilty as charged. See how it works?
I need to know why this olive hasn't been stuffed with pimento like I asked.
Joe, will you join my jury?
Shut up, I'm busy. So a Star Soldier bangs his head on a door and you want to make a documentary about it?
That's right.
Get a life.
simple question, have you seen this man? Excuse me?
No.
You've never seen him?
No.
Never seen him? Okay, thank you. Have you seen this one at all?